All right, welcome back to All Cars, y'all. I am John. It is time for another Motorweek Retro Review reaction. This week it is the 2002 Isuzu Axiom, an SUV that is easy to forget. I don't remember this thing selling for very long. I don't think it sold in any kind of big numbers, and it looked weird. But I do remember it. I'd forgotten about it, but I do remember it, and I'm surprised that Motorweek actually had a review of it. So I'm excited to see this one. Certainly, as SUVs continue to become more and more popular over the years, everybody tried to sell them. And Isuzu had some good ones before, but I just don't remember this one ever resonating with anybody. So as always, grab your beverage of choice. We got some decaf today. And sit in your comfy chair. Let's take a little trip down memory lane. Unbelievably, over 20 years ago now.
Motorweek is made possible by Auto Value and Bumper to Bumper and TireRack.com.
While the sport utility boom has meant huge sales and profits for many car makers, one brand that benefited only modestly is Isuzu. Their rodeo and trooper SUVs just never struck gold with buyers. In fact, some critics, as well as part owner General Motors, want Isuzu out of SUVs completely.
What? So, hold on. I mean, I guess in terms of total number of sales, I don't know those off the top of my head from over 20 years ago. But the rodeo was, in my world, as someone back then who owned Jeeps and was modestly into off-roading, I had respect for the rodeo. I had a ton of respect for the trooper. Maybe not the Amigo, but maybe they're talking about just sales overall, but certainly I respected the videos. Isuzus were always reliable, durable, but crude. That's my opinion. But General Motors wanted them out? That's kind of news to me, honestly. But let's see what they say.
But the folks at Isuzu are determined, and the SUV they hope to ride to the promised land is the eye-catching Axiom. Has Isuzu's time finally arrived? The folks at Isuzu call the 2002 Axiom a vehicle for the 21st century. And in keeping with that theme, the name Axiom was chosen from nearly 47,000 entries in a website naming contest. Now that's pretty forward-thinking stuff. And that line of thought is fairly evident in the Axiom's sleek, head-turning exterior. Derived from the ZXS concept car, a massive louvered grille and fascia topped by cat's eye headlamps fronts a profile with a rising shoulder line and tapered roofline that spans a modest 106.4-inch wheelbase, the same as the rodeo chassis on which Axiom is based, before meeting at the vertical one-piece hatch at the rear. But underneath the Axiom...
Okay, I'm going to go back just a little bit here, guys. Let's talk about... There it is. The front, real quick. This... I don't know what to say. This is not an attractive car. It is, however, I think, very forward-thinking. And bear with me on this for a minute. This front here, very interesting. Narrowing headlights. The grille is unusually small, but then that huge louvered area down below. I mean, you take that idea, and all of a sudden, you're talking about what Lexus is doing, and basically what all the manufacturers are trying to do with bigger and bigger, grills to have some presence out there. This is done, I don't know, great value, right? Great value SUV. But the idea is there to be very much what contemporary SUVs are doing a lot of times. Down the side, I mean, if I just flash that up on the screen, you'd probably look at that and say, oh, that's like a Lexus GS, right? Or something like that. The rear, let me go back here where they show the rear, if I can get to it. Yep. There. I mean, that looks like a combination of a Mitsubishi Montero and a more contemporary Honda CR-V. This, don't flame me in the comments, but I'm serious. This car, this SUV, has a lot of touches that I think became more styling acceptable later on. Together, they look chunky and awkward. But I'm not sure on the exterior Isuzu wasn't just ahead of their time a little bit here. I'm shocked.
At the vertical one-piece hatch at the rear. But underneath the Axiom's svelte 21st century skin, you'll find plenty of traditional SUV engineering. Rather than provide Axiom with a unibody chassis like some competitors, Isuzu chose to heavily modify the Rodeo's more rugged body-on-frame. The box section ladder frame is braced with 8 cross members for added rigidity. It connects to the road via a front-independent unequal-length A-arm suspension with torsion and stabilizer bars, while at the rear is a 5-link coil spring design, also with standard stabilizer bar. The whole package is, in turn, governed by the second generation of Isuzu's intelligent suspension control. A dedicated CPU receives input from a multitude of sensors and, in turn, adjusts shock absorber damping to control dive, squat, and body roll. There's also a switch for selecting comfort or sport suspension modes. Riding on standard 17-inch alloy wheels wrapped in 65 series rubber, the Axiom delivers a solid, secure ride that is more sport sedan than sport ute. The engine speed-sensitive rack and pinion steering is responsive with a nicely weighted feel, but it could use a little more precision for turn-ins. Powering the Axiom.
Man, they went on and on about the chassis and suspension there, didn't they? That was kind of unusual. 8 cross members to add strength. I'm not a chassis engineer, but that sounds like a lot. And coil at the back, but torsion bar with stabilizer at the front almost sounds backwards to me. I don't know. I mean, they took an older chassis and they updated it for this, and then gave it, their most advanced suspension system, and their overall comments here seem to be relatively positive. Interesting.
Is the Trooper's 3.5-liter all-aluminum twin-cam 24-valve V6, but uprated to 230 horsepower with 230 pound-feet of torque. A variable intake pent-roof combustion chamber design and numerous low-friction tweaks make for smooth power delivery. With 200 pound-feet of torque,
I've got no problem with that engine. I don't know about it specifically. I've always had a pretty good impression of Isuzu engines. That one, the numbers sound healthy.
Torque at just 1,200 RPM and a precise drive-by-wire throttle, the Axiom is off the line smartly with a good 0 to 60 time of 9.3 seconds. And although torque peaks at 3,000 RPM for off-road use, there's still plenty of oomph left in the upper reaches of the power band for pavement passing. The Axiom comes in 2-wheel and 4-wheel drive. 4x4s are equipped with Isuzu's Torque on Demand 4-wheel drive system. This full-time setup runs in rear-wheel drive until wheel slip is detected. Then up to 50% of the torque goes to the front wheels. Ample ground clearance and a transfer case with low gear makes the fashionable Axiom very off-road capable. Although, as our friends at AMI Auto World Weekly point out, the Axiom is comparatively nimble, but the suspension is designed more for a smooth pavement ride than for boulder hopping. But then, when is the last time you took your SUV on anything rougher than gravel? The Axiom's interior accommodations are anything but rough. Available in base and XS trim, our XS tester came with comfy and supportive heated leather seats with 4-way power for the driver. A power passenger seat is optional. The driver faces a leather-wrapped tilting steering wheel and a snappy-looking gauge cluster that still conveys data in a concise, straightforward manner. To the right, the multi-information display is a little more confusing, however, with info for the stereo, climate controls, trip computer clock, and digital compass. The controls for the stereo with cassette and console-mounted 6-disc changer and the automatic climate controls are also integrated into a single unit. And although climate controls are silver and audio are black, their close proximity takes some getting used to. Rear seating is adequate and comfortable for 2 adults, but 3 across is still a squeeze. On sale in
that I'm stunned, guys, in case you haven't figured that out yet. I have very little problem with that interior. That combined information display, I get what they're saying. That's a little confusing. They compiled a lot of junk in there, and I imagine that glancing over at it for the clock, for example, a little too much information. This was 22 years ago. Let's cut them some slack for how it's arranged. But it's set back, right, so that it doesn't glare as much. They didn't say that. The gauges are fine, and it has available power passenger seat. This is not a luxury brand. That really has got to me. That's kind of surprised me. The leather looks wonderful. The interior looks wonderful. It's got some, honestly, I'm going to say it's got some styling touches that we still see today. The dash is a little dour. You've heard me talk endlessly for years about all black dashes, all black, but the tan interior lightens it up. I think the dash overall is a little depressing. But that combined AC, HVAC, and radio unit, but using different color buttons for each one, I know they just criticized it. I think that's cool as heck. I really like this interior.
April, the 2002 Isuzu Axiom will sport a price of $25,985 for a base 4x2. XS 4x2 start at $28,305. A base 4x4 will be $28,465, with XS trim bringing the 4x4 to only $30,785. Now, Webster defines Axiom as a self-evident truth, and with its eye-catching styling, rugged build quality, and pleasing interior layout, it's pretty evident to us that the 2002 Axiom is the kind of bold step Isuzu needs to catch buyer attention like it caught ours.
I would agree with that. Isuzu was in my opinion, on life support for a long, long time. Their cars were always a little cruder than anybody else's, and they had some successes like the Geostorm, right? I remember the Geostorm. I don't remember the Isuzu Stylus right off the top of my head. Their trucks were fine, but not Toyota Tacoma. Their SUVs were good. I respected them. But at that moment, if I had my opportunity to lay down the money between a Rodeo or a Cherokee, I would have bought the Jeep. And I think that's what they were up against. And this, they came out, and while it had the ladder frame underpinnings, it was tuned more for on-road, is what they said. So it wasn't really an off-roader. So was this competing with the S10 Blazers and the Explorers and the Cherokees and the Grand Cherokees, or was it more for on-road? Were they, again, ahead of their time in tuning it more for, look, you're going to be a suburban driver, why pretend you're going to take it into the mountains? I don't know. But this one really surprised me. Like I said at the beginning, this is a vehicle that's honestly just forgotten. You know, when was the last time you ever thought about Isuzu or the Axiom? I'm going to look up how long it was on sale for and how many, if I can find it, how many they actually sold. But basically, I remember reading a few articles about it, seeing a couple, and then it just seemed to disappear. And this review surprises me because I find this to be a very compelling package. And honestly, this review is one of those that it's like, wow, I'd buy one of these used just to have it. You know, just because it's so quirky from a brand that's gone. Wouldn't you love to own one of these for a while and experience it and find out, yeah, it actually was a turd, or we all missed something that was 5-10 years ahead of its time? I don't know. That's kind of how I feel about it. Let me know your thoughts below, especially if you ever owned one for any length of time, how this thing actually wore on as a daily basis, right? I appreciate you being here, guys. Let me know below.